song about being on the journey together, and we all know that if we're going to make a difference in this world, we have to do it together. I feel the current raging around me, trying to summon up my strength once more. I am weary on this journey.
Protesting is defined as expressing an objection to something someone has said or done. It is typically seen as being violent or non-violent, with varying degrees of violence in the violent protests, as well as several different methods of non-violent protest. We interviewed Manchester students and faculty in order to see how they feel about the practice of protesting.
Sometimes there are institutions that are doing something wrong, and that the protest is the best way to get their attention, but not only to get their attention, but to also get the public's attention and raise awareness about whatever issue is being protested.
Anything that I believe would be a violation of individual integrity, a violation of human rights, a violation of freedom, any of those things would compel me to protest.
I think what compels me most is to fight for injustice. There's so many injustices in this world, and I think these protests usually are from the accumulation of a lot of people getting together for a cause that kind of incorporates a lot of different injustices in the world.
Abby Fuller, an associate professor of sociology at Manchester University, is going to explain some of the finer points of protesting.
You've probably heard of Gene Sharp's 198 Methods of Nonviolent Action. And those are divided into three categories: protest and persuasion, non-cooperation, and nonviolent intervention. And I would say they're all effective. Protest and persuasion, I mean, I subscribe to the principle of escalation, that you should use the least confrontational or the least militant methods first. For instance, protest and persuasion, things like talking to people, writing letters, carrying signs. If those don't work, then it's valid to escalate your tactics to non-cooperation, which means withdrawing your support from institutions. And then if that doesn't work, nonviolent intervention, things like blockades, sit-ins and stuff like that would be justified as well. So I think that they all can be effective in different circumstances. I think it's important to use them in that context of escalating tactics.
Every November, protesters flock to Columbus, Georgia, with the intention to non-violently protest the School of the Americas, located inside of Fort Benning, and demand that it be closed. Manchester Peace Studies students were among these protesters who advocated for the immediate and permanent closure of the SOA.
Colombia, my country, has been the biggest user of the School of the Americas and WHINSEC. It has sent more than 10,000 soldiers to be trained here. It has the worst human rights record in the Western Hemisphere. More than 35,000 people have been killed just in the last 10 years. Colombia now has the largest number of internally displaced people in the world. 30 of the 33 commanders have been trained here at the School of the Americas. We cry.
The School of the Americas, also known as the SOA, is a combat training school for Latin American soldiers located at Fort Benning, Georgia. In 2001, it was renamed the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, also known as WHINSEC. Since 1946, the SOA has trained over 64,000 Latin American soldiers in counterinsurgency techniques, sniper training, commando and psychological warfare, military intelligence, and interrogation techniques. We interviewed protesters from all over the world in order to gain an understanding as to what compelled them to come down to Fort Benning, Georgia, in order to protest the SOA.
En el 2011, 27 de marzo, las 9 de la noche, mi hermano se dirigía a Texas, donde vive y trabaja por más de 5 años. Él es ciudadano americano. Él venía a trabajar como todos los días. Y el 27 de marzo fue la última llamada que recibimos de él, diciendo que la policía lo había parado, pero que todo estaba bien. Y después solo escuchó mi madre, su mamá, escuchó diciéndole a su compañero, acelera, acelera. O sea, estaban siendo seguidos. Y ya nunca supe de él, hasta el día de hoy no supe de él. Esta escuela ha entrenado a uno de los sicarios más grandes de México, que pertenece a la cartel de los Zetas. Y por supuesto, si esto lo está viendo el mundo entero, porque a este punto Latinoamérica está muy enfocada en cerrar esta escuela. Y sé que mi hermano, si me está viendo, sé que está bien.
I am the family member of somebody who was killed by people, generals who were trained here at the School of the Americas. My great uncle here, I have an image of him. His name was Orlando Letelier, and he was a minister in the Allende government, and he, along with many other people who really believed in that the wealth of Chile should belong to Chileans and fought for that, sort of gave his life for that struggle, because once the coup in Chile happened, the military, the secret police, along with the CIA, decided that it was necessary to get rid of him because he was speaking out in the U.S. about what was going on in Chile at the time. Not a lot of people knew what was happening after the coup. We didn't have the internet or Twitter to sort of give updates about what was going on, and there was a lot of media secrecy. So he was working on sort of getting the word out. When a bomb was put under his car and he was blown up, his body was severed in two, and he lost his life in a very painful way. And for my family and for my life, his story is very important.
This is what democracy looks like! Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
The individual protesters had many different reasons for attending the SOA protest, but one of the overlapping reasons for their attendance is that deep down, the protesters all felt that the SOA is a morally unjust institution requiring immediate closure.
For me, being out here and participating in protests is a way for me, a person of faith, to not only protest but give my testimony. So I like to protestify, testify about what I see in the world and what I hope to see, and what I've learned from my elders who've been out here for a long time and have shown me the way that I can make my voice heard, work together with others, and just really help create a better world.
I'm basically doing this to shed the light on the oppression that we as Americans and the Latino community, Latin America, and basically the Middle East is, we're basically, the United States government and these dictatorial governments are oppressing us and holding us down, chaining us down, you know? And so it's more a visual on how fucked up shit is.
Así que lo último que se pierde es la esperanza. Si ustedes están haciendo esto es porque hay esperanza, y es lo que me tiene aquí.
There are many reasons that people give for participating in a protest. But the fact of the matter remains that when people perceive something as unjust, they are more than likely going to speak up against the injustice. There are many potential methods that can be employed while protesting, ranging from violent to non-violent, from direct to indirect. But the simple truth is that people love for their voices to be heard, and protesting is simply a means to an end to get a message out to the public.